Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another event hosted by the Warsaw Institute. Today we will touch the topic related to Israeli-Lebanese escalation as well as other aspects of current situation on Middle East. My pleasure to introduce two of my guests for today. First of all, Mr. Marcin Krzyżanowski. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And Lukasz Steinman, good afternoon. Thank you for joining.
Good afternoon.
Our event is organized with support of National Institute of Freedom, and I highly encourage everyone to be with us today and follow our discussion. Before we start, I'd like to mention that both of my guests spent some time in Middle East recently, so our discussion will be more interesting thanks to that fact. And we will start with pretty general question for the beginning. We'll start with Marcin Krzyżanowski. Gentlemen, Israel is preparing for a potential attack from Iran and Hezbollah. Western democracies, Western countries are urging their citizens to get back to their home countries as soon as possible, like foreseeing some kind of bigger danger coming from Middle East. So my question to you is, what's the situation in Middle East right now, and how close are we to bigger escalation and full-time war?
Every time we are very close to the escalation and to the real war in the Middle East. But the question is when we will cross the red line. At the moment, there is a lot of tension around possible connected to possible Iranian revenge at Israel. But in my opinion, and opinion of minority of experts, such attack will not happen in the nearest future, as Iran would like to avoid full-scale, large, direct war. We would like to avoid indirect involvement in that conflict, although the need for a revenge is very strong in Iranian society and among Iranian supporters in the Middle East. Iran is not ruled by madmen. Iran is ruled by quite wise and at least and smart politicians who are ready to calculate profits and losses. At the moment, the losses from such attack would be too much for Iran. So at the moment, we are still very close because we are one attack, one rocket, one bomb from the full-scale war, but still is a very firm border, and that border will not be crossed anytime soon.
Thank you very much. Before we move to Lukasz Steinman, I want to ask you a follow-up question about recent claim by Iranian Foreign Ministry, by spokesperson of Iranian Foreign Ministry, stating that Iran is not seeking a wider conflict on one hand, but on the other hand, Iran thinks that punishing Israel is necessary. So, in your opinion, how should we assess such claims by governmental body of Iran?
I think which is very important in that context is that not separate opinion of the ministry spokesmen. That the official statements of all ministries and almost all high-level Iranian politicians look pretty like this one. Generally speaking, Iran cannot let Israel go unpunished for the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh. But as I said before, the possible losses from that attack would exceed profits widely. So most probably, Iran decided to choose a less visible, less lethal revenge instead of direct attack, attack like that one we witnessed in April. Most probably, Iran will decide to organize some kind of action on the territory of Israel or the foreign Israeli asset. For example, it might be assassination of active or retired politician or military officer or or political analyst, commentator, journalist. That target would be famous enough to say that the Hania assassination was revenged.
Thank you very much for your comment on that. Now I will give the floor to Lukas Steinman with the same question. First of all, um, what is the situation on Middle East right now when it comes to escalating the conflict? How close are we to full-time war? And follow-up question about statement of Iranian Ministry of Foreign Affairs that on one hand we are not seeking a conflict, but on the other hand we think punishing Israel is necessary. Please, the floor is yours.
Well, I think if a large scale war might happen, and it might happen, this would be started by Israel and not by Iran. Why? Because Iran is today not in a condition to launch a large scale attack against Israel because of the geopolitical situation in the Middle East. As we know, Iran is moving like an octopus in the region. It's not just the Iranian state attacking Israel, which just happened one time after the bombardments by Israel of the general consulate of Iran in Damascus on April 1st or April 4th, if I'm not wrong. But generally, the attacks against Israel coming from Iran are done through the Iranian proxies in the region. I'm speaking, of course, of Hezbollah in Lebanon, of the Shia militias in Syria, of the Houthi in Yemen, and of other militias from Afghanistan and Pakistan that are currently displaced in the Middle East, especially in Syria. We are seeing, however, that the position of these militias are positioned in countries whose society cannot afford a full scale war against Israel today. I'm speaking especially about Lebanon and about Syria. Both countries are bordering with Israel. Both countries are living a very tremendous economical crisis due to different regions. Syria is destroyed by more than 10 years of civil war, is destroyed by the Western sanctions against the country. Lebanon lived an economic financial crash in 2019, then the blast of the harbor in 2020. So for different reasons, I've been in both countries recently. You can really feel a vibe there where most people, the majority of people, don't want to enter in a war against Israel. A minority of them, I would think, because of the ideological reasons, because they are more pro-Western. The great majority, just because they are fed up of war, because they are in an economic condition that does not give the possibility of them to afford another large war. And that's why Israel is targeting so precisely its targets, for instance, in Syria and in Lebanon. I've been there. It's impressive to see how Israel is really bombarding Iranian positions in Syria and Hezbollah position in Lebanon with a really very high level of precision, which we're not seeing in Gaza before, where, as we know, Israel is bombarding very heavily civilians and also civilian structures there. So this precision of the Jewish state, of the bombardment of Israel against these two countries, is responding to the fact that the Israeli authorities really know that these societies there are not willing to go to war, that they cannot afford the war. So they are trying to bombard Iran, sending messages both to politicians in Lebanon and Syria and to the local populations. Basically, the message arriving is telling them, if you take distance from Iran, if you push Iran away from our borders, if you isolate the Iranian proxies politically and economically in your countries, then we are not going to bombard you. Then we are not going to push you towards a large scale war which would destroy you. And this message is arriving. Indeed, you have, not in Syria, but especially in Lebanon, several political forces that are pushing against Hezbollah because they don't want Hezbollah to drive all the entire country and the entire population into a large scale war against Israel. And we're seeing that this, I would say, as for now, is working. We are not seeing a large attack, a larger attack by the Iranian proxies against Israel. So, how close are we to a war? To answer your question, I think, as we were saying before, that every rocket could change a situation. So we can say something today, and then tomorrow a rocket might fall somewhere in Lebanon or in Syria or inside Israel, and changing the psychological situation there, thus bringing us to a war. But as for now, I would say that Iran has not the geopolitical conditions to move the populations in which of the countries of its proxies to go to start a large war against Israel. So if the war will start, it will be launched by Israel these days in this timing. Um, we already know that Israel is facing lots of international pressures from the American administration, from some European countries because of the happenings in Gaza. So I would say that if there will be no very big changes in the next few days and weeks, we can hope at least to have a relatively, I cannot call it relatively peaceful, but we can hope not to go to a large full scale war within the next few weeks or months.
Thank you very much. Iran, as for now, is not launching a very huge military conflict against Israel, but is sending offensive messages throughout their actions in the region. Before we move to the next question, I'd like to encourage our viewers to ask questions in the chat for our experts. And now, gentlemen, let's move towards a different direction. Let's move to Turkey. I'd like to ask you about a recent statement by Turkish President Erdogan. He apparently said that Turkey will seek to hold Israel accountable for the crimes committed in Gaza Strip. My question to you is, how feasible is that accountability, and does Turkey actually have any effective tools to hold Israel accountable for the crimes committed in Gaza Strip? Luca, please, the floor is yours.
Well, we have been seeing in the last few years and months that Turkey is trying to gain an influence on the Middle Eastern region and on generally the Islamic populations of the region. This has been done through different ways. For instance, the Turkish government is linking itself to the Muslim Brotherhood, which is this international network active in all the Middle East. And at the same time, I'm sorry for this. And at the same time, we are seeing Turkey trying to conquer the hearts of the populations in the region by, let's say, using the Palestinian issue. We have been seeing that the Palestinian issue is really able to move the hearts and to move population and to bring populations in the Middle East, demonstrating and unifying them against Israel. So Turkey is definitely playing this role by saying, we are the actor, we are the ones that will fight against Israel until the end, and that will represent the Islamic populations and the normal, regular people of the Middle East in this issue against Israel. Personally, I'm not very sure how serious Turkey is in by saying this. We have to remember that at the same time Turkey is developing pretty strong economic relations with Israel, especially when it comes to the exploitation of water and of gas and natural resources in the Mediterranean Sea, especially around Cyprus. So there are still a very high level of economic cooperation between the two countries, and these positionments are taken by the government of Erdogan. I would be pretty surprised if Turkey would take a larger action to really try to become politically the strongest enemy of Israel in the Middle East.
Thank you very much. Now let's hear Marcin Krzyżanowski's opinion on that, on words of Turkish president. Can we treat it more serious or more diplomatic? What is your opinion on that?
Definitely more diplomatic, and I can easily sign under Lucas' statement that Turkey is trying to win the hearts and minds of the Middle Eastern societies. But besides very strong in diplomatic terms language of President Erdogan and his foreign ministers. Except for that, there is a little of substantial support to Palestinian case, or there is a lack of strong non-verbal but direct signal to Israel. Of course, as Luca said, there is ongoing economical cooperation in the field of extraction of Mediterranean resources. From one side, Turkey issued trade embargo on Israeli assortments, but at the very same time, Turkish companies are buying and selling from and to Israel via Greece and Cyprus. Turkey is still pumping gas and oil from Caucasus area to Israel. So, making long story short, those are mostly and by far mostly and almost only words without substantial work on the field.
Thank you very much. So it's worth underlining that on one hand we have embargoes, but on the other hand we have still available solutions between companies to make business throughout the territory of Greece or Cyprus. Gentlemen, let's get back to the topic of escalation. I want to dig a little bit deeper on what you've already said about, for example, killing of Palestinian Hamas political leader Ismail Haniyeh. We also had a killing of Hezbollah military leader Fuad Shukr. So my question to you is, looking at those situations, um, having in mind what we've said before, um, how does such situation impact the escalation and the tensions? Uh, According to common knowledge, after those killings, we didn't have bigger escalation of conflict. It's pretty much on the same level as far as I know. So I'd like to hear your comment on that, whether uh, maybe we should expect something more from Iran than only messages. Luca, please, the floor is yours.
Well, it's very difficult to say this, but we can say that starting from the 7th of October, we uh, already get to know something more. First of all, the months and years before 7th of October were characterized by a growing tension, especially in words from Iranian side and especially from the side of Hezbollah, saying that, for instance, Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, was repeating always that Hezbollah was getting new rockets, new kind of modern missiles that could destroy every corner of Israel, every corner, I'm quoting, of occupied occupied Palestine. Well, we're seeing that when it comes to the real danger of war, this is not happening, at least for now. After Israel bombarding the general consulate of Iran in Damascus, after Israel killing the leader of a group like Hamas, like Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran, there has been no real strong answer from the side of Iran, and this means something. This means, on the one side, at least for now, we're seeing that Iran and its proxies do not have the same technology and the same intelligence as Israel to respond to the attacks that Israel launched against them. So this is definitely showing a weakness of the pro-Iranian front against Israel and a strength when it comes to intelligence and when it comes to military technology from the side of Israel. This doesn't mean that Israel is getting stronger on all the dimensions, you know, like as we say, as we saw on the 7th of October, there were big intelligence problems around the Gaza Strip when it comes to the Israel armed forces and the Israeli security system. Um, However, we are seeing that it really seems that Israel has been investing lots of technologies, lots of money, lots of strength, and lots of energies in the last few years and months in controlling the Iranian enemy and in analyzing is Iran and its proxies, thus showing a capability from the Israeli side, a strong capability from the Israeli side to respond and to attack Iran. We have to see and we have to keep the eyes open on what's going to happen in the Palestinian territories, where we have been seeing that Hamas and other jihadist or anti-Israeli movements have been very active in the last few years and have shown their capability in involving and moving lots of people, lots of relevant parts of the population against Israeli authorities and against the Israeli army settled there. So as we are seeing, the war is multidimensional, is not a traditional war between two players, between Israel and Iran, but it's way more complex. It's involving different stages. However, yes, at the end we can say that when it comes to the direct confrontation between Israel and Iran, we are seeing that as for today, Israel really seems to be stronger when it comes to intelligence and then when it comes to military technology.
Thank you very much, Luca. Before we move to Marcin Krzyżanowski, I have a follow-up question to you because you've mentioned the case of Palestine. Recently, we had a meeting between Palestinian Islamic Jihad leader and Iran's president. After the meeting, the Iran assured its strong support to Palestine, regardless of any political internal changes. So if you could just give a sort of view to our viewers, what's the situation between Iran and Palestine now? How big is the support, and will it get bigger, or will it become? Will it be still the same as it's for now?
Well, it is a very complex question. On the one side, we are seeing, of course, Iran trying, let's say, to use the Palestinian issue as a tool to involve all the Middle Eastern states and societies against Israel. And as for Iran, using the Palestinian issue as a tool like this is also a way to establish a new geopolitical balance within the Middle East without involving Israel. What I'm meaning with this, we have to remember that there is not only a confrontation between Israel and the rest of the Middle East, but especially there is also confrontation between different Middle Eastern stakeholders and players that have been fighting against each other in the last years in the Middle East, especially in Syria, in the Syrian civil war. We have been speaking a lot about the indirect confrontation in Syria between, on the one side, Saudi Arabia, and on the other side, Iran, for instance, both supporting and arming different armed groups in the country fighting against each other. So I would say that on the one side, for Iran, it is very important to pretend to be the actor defending the Palestinian cause, because this is bringing very much people, lots of many states and many actors and parts of the societies throughout the Middle East to support Iran and to identify Iran as the actor that is more credible against Israel. I'm making when it comes to this a very specific example. I've been spending a lot of time in the last years in the Palestinian refugee camps in Lebanon. And a few years ago, when you were going to the camps like En El Helwi, like Shatila, there, you could feel, you could breathe a very strong Israel, sorry, not only anti-Israeli, but anti-Iranian vibe. Why? Because a few years ago, you were having a very strong war fought in Syria between, as I said, on the one side Iran, on the other side other militias, which were mainly Sunni Muslim there, like the Palestinians. So the vibe among Palestinians was not very pro-Iranian. Now I went there a few weeks ago, and the situation changed completely. When you enter a camp, you can see big posters of the leaders of Iran and of Hassan Nasrallah, for instance, the leader of Hezbollah, thus showing how the so-called war between Shia and Sunni that we were witnessing at a few years ago is kind of over, and now Iran was able in creating or in bringing the war to a new dimension, which is the one between Israel and, let's say, the Arabs or the Muslim on the other side. Of course, not all the Muslim, but this is what Iran is, let's say, dealing with, and these are the words that Iran are using. But to go to the conclusion, on the other side, we have to remember that in the different countries in the Middle East, when it comes to the Palestinian issues, we are often seeing different reactions among populations towards Palestinians. I'm making you an example. Although the majority of the populations are supporting the Palestinian cause against Israel, when it comes to the domestic politics dealing with the local Palestinians being there, like in Iraq, in Syria, in Lebanon, well, this brings a lot of tension. So the Palestinian communities and organizations are not seen always very positively by the local governments and by the local population, with exceptions, of course. But this is a fact that we cannot ignore. So for instance, we are seeing that Iran is, for instance, ready to support the Palestinian cause in Palestine, but is not so ready to support the Palestinian cause in Lebanon, where Palestinians have been fighting against many Lebanese for several years during the civil war, and where generally Palestinians have not a good reputation among many Lebanese. So we have really to differentiate between the higher political level, yes, Iran, we Iranians support Palestine, and the domestic level, where the proxies of Iran in Syria and Lebanon and in other countries not always agree with the behaviors of the local Palestinian groups.
Thank you. Thank you very much for explaining this complex situation to our viewers, as well as giving us an overview of reactions within society to what's happening in the region. Now, I will give the floor to Mark Krzyżanowski. First of all, if you have any comment on kills of political leader and possible retaliation from Iran, and then comment on Iranian-Palestinian relations and current state of play.
First of all, the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran in the day of inauguration ceremony of Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian was a serious hit, a serious blow to the Iranian military and security authorities. It was a sign that most probably Israel is able to hit everybody, even in the heart of Iranian state. What is interesting that is the fact that after this incident, there was no demission on the highest level of Iranian security apparatus. That's first point. Second point is that every single higher level Iranian politician told at least once that there will be a revenge, but in in the time chosen by Iran, not by enemies. One of the leading Iranian political analyst, Mohammad Moradi, said that at the moment the enemies are ready for Iranian retaliation, and the retaliation will happen when we will be ready and enemy will be unprepared. And at the moment, that's the dominant narrative in the Iranian policy. The second thought came a few days ago from the highest instance, I mean from the mouth of the supreme leader himself. Ayatollah Khamenei said that stepping back, unless it is a tactical step back, is forbidden for Iran, for Iran and for Iranian policymakers, and that's another and very strong indicator that Iran will not forget assassination of Haniyeh, but most probably will continue its usual policy. I mean, it will continue even with a possible increase to support various anti-Israeli and pro-Iranian militias and organizations in the region, with the Hezbollah on the top and various militias under Kataib Hezbollah banner in Iraq. Of course, the cooperation with Houthi also will be more tight, etc., etc. But I don't expect any major shifts or major actions from the side of Iran, especially not directly from Iranian territory. And as for the support for the Palestinian case, it is a very complicated issue, and it is an issue closely connected to internal situation in Iran. Iranian society is deeply polarized, is deeply divided from the political perspective. There is a quite huge group of Iranians that simply hate Iranian Republic and everything Iranian Republic do. So, regardless of the topic, policy of Iranian Republic, of Islamic Republic, is bad. On the other side, there is also very large and significantly larger than the first one, second group of staunch supporters of Iranian Islamic Republic, because people who are think that who are think people who think that if the Iranian Republic is Islamic, as it is, by at least by the name, and if the policy direction is formulated by Ayatollah and Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei, then everything is okay because it is in accordance to the sacred religion of Islam. Of course, in between, we can find a full spectrum of opinions from supporters of Palestinian case and Iranian involvement through supporters of Palestinian case, but unhappy with Iranian involvement. And last but not least, there is a group of people who thinks that Palestinians should be live by themselves and should be left on the sake of Arab Sunni states, not Persian, Iranian Shia state. What is very interesting is that the group supporting direct involvement of Iran grows significantly. Each assassination, each such action is blowback not only in the face of security apparatus, but for many Iranians is also a disgrace for their own country, regardless of exact name, exact of being Islamic Republic, kingdom, or something like that.
Thank you very much. Both of you underlined the importance of divisions in society, which is probably a very good topic for the next discussions as well. But that was my last question to you, gentlemen. So, first of all, thank you for being on board today. Pleasure, as always, to have you for discussion about Middle East. I highly recommend our viewers to follow our next events and our publications, articles, special reports, and many, many more. So, once again, gentlemen, thank you very much for today, and I wish you a pleasant rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you too.
Thank you.